As a neat little idea, I tried not playing Dead by Daylight for the entire period between the release of the last killer and this one, mostly because every peer I had was bleeding all over Twitter while subsequently continuing to put that knife in their mouth. In that time, I picked up kickboxing as a hobby, learned some new songs on the guitar, and made the best video I will ever create for a good long time, while they did things like pull their teeth out and make money. So let's get less healthy. The new killer is from The Ring, and to be honest, I have a soft spot for the series. I never saw the full movie till recently, but Sadako and her tofu ripoff Kayako scared the shit out of me on 2010's YouTube, so it's a soft spot in the same way that you would describe an exposed nerve ending. To be brief, The Ring is a series about a videotape that curses the viewer. If you don't fix its curse in 7 days, you are killed by Sadako Yamamura, the ghost of a powerful psychic. There was a lot to say about this killer, and it also seems to have been the right brand of Novocaine the community needed. And now we can add even shorter girls to the group of people we can hit with pallets.
How pathetic.
Though I think some people are quick to forget, this is the Japanese version.
How the hell?
Good fucking grief. Up close, that hair is trashy as hell. Although I'd say you've got bigger problems than that. There's something that's about to look a lot worse than that ratty mess. And that, my friend, is your pretty little face.
Remember how the Hillbilly was based on Bubba, back when the idea of behavior getting cool licenses sounded a little far-fetched, so they made their own version out of tofu? During the days when the spirit was a satisfying dinner, The Ring seemed like such a silly idea. How do you make a kit based on someone who just makes your heart stop and nothing else? The answer was to make her rip off really fucking angry all the time. Cause traditional horror only kind of works in a multiplayer setting, so you might as well focus on fun while you're not tied to being authentic, and a killer that only appears in photographs around the map then kills you randomly when you try to exit would be very annoying, which is why I am passing a law that demands all no-ed nurse players be punched in the stomach. So Sadako, or the Onryo if you prefer. Normally I don't care much about describing or teaching people the killer power, but this might be the one who unironically requires an explanation. It's just that the in-game description is an affront to the concept of information itself. This reads like someone maced me, then demanded that I solve today's Wordle. Sadako has the power to demanifest, which Google just told me isn't a word. While demanifested, Sadako's heartbeat is removed. Alongside that, she's harder to see, glitching in and out of visibility for survivors at the distance of 32 meters. Anything outside of that, she's 100% invisible. However, in this form, she's unable to attack and goes through people. In the barest of forms, she's a stealth killer. You sneak up on survivors, exit the demanifestation state, and land a quick strike. While you phase back into reality, you also get a brief few seconds of in-between where you keep the effects of the demanifestation state. Think of the spirit coming out of her power, but with extra tofu. While demanifested, Sadako can teleport out of several TVs sprinkled around the map, allowing you to cut off certain angles or quickly monitor objectives. This makes Sadako what I'd cautiously call the most unpredictable killer so far. The power is based around making her tough to notice in a chase. Being given the sole wearer of the short queen trait, she's hard to spot on most loops like a child hovering under the desk at 7-Eleven. Essentially, if she's chasing you and suddenly disappears, put your finger over the dead hard button. She crawls out insanely fast, allowing her to quickly confuse and get the survivor from an angle they didn't expect. The other piece of her kit is the curse itself. Each survivor has a meter that goes up called their condemnation, with 7 segments on it. The bar increases in 3 ways. Survivors can turn off TVs for 60 seconds by interacting with them, but doing so puts a tape in their inventory. While the tape is in their possession, they slowly accrue a late fee. When Sadako emerges from a TV, she also gives everyone a segment of condemnation, as well as helping her discover anyone that's nearby. It's 16 meters, which is more than you'd think. Not to mention that the TVs are disposed to spawn near generators. When the meter is maxed out, the survivor is revealed with killer instinct for a few seconds and can be killed instantly while down on the ground. Like pig traps, don't get excited. You can force it by constantly warping to TVs in front of your target, but remember you're just as liable to get confused as your victim. And you gotta do it 7 times because Sadako wrote her curse to be very specific, otherwise she'll fuck off and go watch South Park or something. It's pretty tough to test a lot of this because getting a killer match on the PTB took about an hour at a time. Lord, thank God I was streaming it, so no one can accuse me of not being dedicated. Also, behavior fucked around with the lobby again by having Sadako randomly pop in your face because the height of creativity is a 2008 Screamer video. Time to move on to her add-ons, and do I even bother? No, not really. There are some that make the TVs turn themselves back on at a faster rate, like you're sleeping at 9 years old, about to be woken up by one of those stop-motion robot chicken commercials, or the one that makes the curse spread to survivors that have to heal. I just confess that I don't care about the rest. As for her perks, I guess I do gotta bother. This isn't the Final Fantasy 15 video, goddammit, I gotta do it right. The new developer trend this year was Scourge hooks. Similar to how survivors got boons, which is like watching your younger brother get a PS5 for Christmas while you get a job. Scourge Hook, Flood of Rage, creates some Scourge hooks, and when someone is unhooked from them, you get to see everyone's aura for a few seconds. Pretty lame compared to the others, but at least it's keeping the saber red out of this. The idea here is that the aura reading is a lot more random. You can detect progress much earlier than other perks, as opposed to tracking passives that tell you when it's almost too late. Speaking of which, Merciless Storm activates when a generator hits 90%, throwing a myriad of skill checks at the survivors on it. Fucking up the skill check or getting off of it will block that generator for 20 seconds. They aren't the easiest skill checks to hit in the world, I confess, though this is not for the highest of tier games. If you're running this against non-specific MMR asshole 5001, you might as well go back to playing Lost Ark. Call of Brine, the last perk, activates when you kick a generator, causing it to reduce at double the speed and glow for 60 seconds. It also gives you a notification if anyone hits a good skill check on that generator in the meantime. And, yeah, cool. Put it with Dragon's Grip and you can watch them both be useless at the same time. Look, I get the balance in this game is a nightmare, but would it kill behavior for this perk to also set the survivors on fire? Just for me. To be frank, these all kinda suck. Individual power aside, I don't know what to do with them. Every other killer release this year seemed to be good with perks. Hex Plaything was actually game-changing in a way that didn't overpower the current meta, which is a tightrope walk so hard to hit that I have trouble believing behavior didn't steal the idea from somewhere else. Same for Sadako, really. When I booted her up, I read a lot of comments saying that she was like Old Freddy, and oh god, not that. Old Freddy might as well be a slur at this point. I don't know how authentic saying that is. I don't think she's going to be able to break Ace Visconti in several pieces. That's just not reasonable to expect from a killer whose main power is getting swiped left, which gives me trouble trying to outline a certain build for her. But by god, I'm gonna try anyway. Tracking, that's what you use on her. Anything that gives you information at times when you have a free hand to teleport. And there's very few distinguishing traits that make them better or worse for her. Sadako gets to pop up at the generator without cooldown, so if she goes to the wrong one, who cares? The best perk in terms of offense is likely Dragon's Grip. This perk affects generators that you damage for 30 seconds. If a survivor hops on it during that time, they'll scream and be exposed for 60 seconds. If you've got an active TV, damage a generator you know survivors want to fix, walk away and pretend to have some of the pandemic special, then come back through the TV when you hear the scream. The other exposed ability I've been quite fond of on sneaky killers is Starstruck. This perk triggers when you pick someone up, passing the insta-down effect onto anyone who hears your terror radius during that time. Sadako has a normal heartbeat range, letting you infect as many survivors as you can with this. Mix that with your insane unpredictability, and you could be the biggest POS the world has ever seen. Sadako excels at shocking people, but if the survivors aren't running to your warp points, you'll need to put in some real work. So for the sake of your sanity, I'd suggest bringing some chasing perks. Stuff like Crowd Control, which automatically blocks windows that survivors vault while the hex is in play. Just make sure you have some hex defense perks, because Crowd Control seems to be haunted in of itself. Every time I bring it, I might as well have given the perk slot to the Democrat Party for all the good it did. In exchange for skipping the add-ons, I'm going to talk about what it's like to play against Sadako. That was much easier because the queue was instant, and I didn't have to distract chat with tales about how the artist video almost featured Birdly. Managing the curse against Sadako is impressively easy. Turning off the TV isn't the most impending problem. She'll jump out of it quickly, and that's the most important part about playing against her. Learning where the TVs are can be 10 times more effective than turning it off, because if you get a good leg on Sadako after she pops out, what the fuck is she gonna do about it? If you do start seeing your condemned meter get a little high, make sure you grab it at 5 ticks. Doing it at 6 will instantly pop you up to 7 until you put the tape away, and trust me, she's going to drop everything to get you. This stare is going to be worth all the street cred in the world to them. Back to killer advice again. The HUD doesn't give you too much information, but it will tell you 2 things. If a survivor has any progress on their condemnation, and if they have a tape in their inventory. The static circle means there's some progress. If it's filled, they have a tape in their pocket. Survivors also gain a small static effect the higher their condemnation goes. I wouldn't get too excited by seeing that you're chasing someone carrying a tape. When they put it in a TV, it almost instantly wipes out 4 segments of the bar, and condemnation pauses during a chase, so if you go after them too long, it'll start to play the Benny Hill song. Let me see how much time I got left. Alright, fine, we'll talk about the red add-ons. The reason I didn't want to discuss the other ones was because everyone wants to know the 2 good ones, and that's the only part of this video that might have been useful. The red VHS tape turns back on 4 TVs when you get a hit upon exiting the stealth state, which is like half of them. Considering that the TV's 60 seconds are the closest thing you have to a cooldown, It makes this pretty valuable, keeping up map control or allowing you to put up pressure in chases. The red remote triggers when you go through a TV, revealing the auras of survivors carrying tapes near other TVs. Like I said before, chasing someone with a tape is not super mega based or anything, it's just humble information, meaning that I don't care about this. But I am proud that they chose aura reading with the new perks and add-ons this time, instead of locations or killer instincts or Ixie summons. This leaves me with a question. Does she suck? I don't see her being any better than mid-tier. Some details of her stealth make her better than other killers, and those details being the rest of the power make her a lot worse than the rest. There have been two groups on the Onryo. Some are okay with her not being very strong, because not every killer needs to be a revenge machine, and the others say, guess you're happy with every match being against Nurse and Blight at high level. I've never really commented on this too much because I don't give a fuck, but I might as well get this thing out of my teeth. The problem with the other half is that it's not exactly like Sadako being good fixes the problem, right? You get one extra killer. Whoa, really gentrifying the roster there, lads. I'd rather she was as she is, then they gave killers a flat buff, even though the data suggests that killers are on par. Even though I have some problems with how they got that data. In my opinion, killers need some tech, or a high-level skill move. Look at the way this game has progressed and what strategies have formed. Survivors learn to spin, killers learn to counteract spins. Survivors learn to gen rush, killers bring perks to undo progress. Survivors learn to body block, killers get body blocked, I guess. And I just think it'd be nice for there to be some all-encompassing killer trick that survivors needed to learn to deal with. The closest move there has ever been was walking backwards to hide your stain. But there's no way to add said tech because Dead by Daylight has almost never done anything on purpose. Sorry, I lost sight of this. The new killer is fine. It didn't cure my sickness or make me smile in the mirror again, but it also wasn't the raining glass experience that everyone told me it would be. Outside of survivors disconnecting every game, DBD worked as intended, which is kind of like saying the sandwich would be great if it didn't contain everyone's teeth in it. Maybe with this lower bar to entry we'll finally get Patrick Bateman. And think of all the things I'll be able to do in between this Ringu chapter and him. Maybe I'll play more Disco Elysium while I wait for that, or do the Plague video I keep promising. Or I could finally beat Sifu, but then I can't make money. Alright, fine. Wonderwall, right? I think I can aim this thing properly.